Good morning. Try again. Good morning, everyone. Hope you are having a wonderful week so far. Hashem. Today we're learning the seventh Perek of Eduyos. Today's shir is the Ruach Shlema Yisrael Baracha Leah Racha Bas Pesach Zada Racha Eliana Bas Yor Bracha Avirus Berisa Chaya Bas David Bela Ruach Shlema B'Sol Shar Chal Yisrael, and as a schus for Tzvi Noach ben Bracha Racha Leah for schus in all his Shefer Bracha Vaslach in all his endeavors, and Zivi Bakara for Shmuel David and the Miriam, and Tzvi ben Chana. Here we go. Let's get rolling here. Chapter Perek Zion, chapter 7. One more second. Okay. Let's roll. Okay. This mission that we're going to see now is going to come up later on when we get to Bechoros. Perek Zion, Mishnah al-Hayid, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Tzadok, al-Pidyon Petach Hamor Shemes. This is referring to a Pidyon Petach Hamor, redemption of a firstborn donkey. The Torah says that if a donkey gives birth to a firstborn male, the Petach Hamor, he must redeem the firstborn donkey with a sheep or a goat and give the sheep to a Kohen. So now we're going to discuss a case where the sheep that was used to redeem the donkey died before it reached the Kohen. So hey, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Tzadok, al-Pidyon Petach Hamor Shemes. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Tzadok testified regarding a case where the redemption, where the redemption sheep of a firstborn donkey died before it reached the Kohen. Shein ba l'Kohen klum, that the Kohen has no claim against the owner, and he cannot demand that the owner give him a new sheep to replace the dead one. He can't claim it. So Eliezer says, that the owner is responsible for the sheep, just as a father is responsible for the 5 slime of the Pidyon Haben. Over there by Pidyon Haben, the halacha is that if a father set aside 5 silver slime to redeem his son, but lost them before he gave them to a Kohen, he must give the Kohen another 5 slime. So the same thing is true regarding the Pidyon Petach Hamor, that if it died before it reached the Kohen, then the owner must give the Kohen another sheep. That's according to Rabbi Eliezer. Chachamim say, the owner is not responsible for the sheep, because the sheep is not like the 5 silver slime of the firstborn. Rather, it's like the redemption money of Ma'aser Sheni, which, if it's lost, does not need to be replaced. So if one redeems his Ma'aser Sheni, her money, but the money was lost before he arrived in Yerushalayim, he does not need to bring other money. Similarly, a person does not need to replace the redemption sheep that died. That's the Eduyos of Yeshua and Rabbi Tzadok that we mentioned at the beginning of the Mishnah supports the opinion of the Chachamim. And Rabbi Eliezer was not the posting on that one. Mishnah Beis refers to grasshoppers. Hey, Rabbi Tzadok al tzir hagam tameim shu tahor. Rabbi Tzadok testified that the fluid of non-kosher grasshoppers is kosher, and you could eat it because the fluid of the grasshopper is not considered part of the grasshopper, but a separate entity. Mishnah Rishona, for an earlier Mishnah that stated, the Mishnah in this doesn't exist now, but it was the older version of Mishnah that existed before the Mishnayos were arranged by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, so we don't have this one in print. But the Mishnah had said, Chagavim Tameim Shenikbasu in Chagavim Tehorim, Lo Apostle Tziram. If non-kosher grasshoppers were pickled together with kosher grasshoppers, the fluid of the non-kosher grasshoppers does not make the fluid of the kosher grasshoppers forbidden. Rather, the mixture of the fluids is allowed for consumption. So the earlier Mishnah, from the days before Yehuda Nasi, permits only the mixture of the fluids, which it would be usher. If it's so testified that this is not correct, rather the fluid of the non-kosher grasshoppers is permitted even on its own. Because the fluid of the grasshopper is not defined as blood. Grasshoppers, and according to the earlier Mishnah, the Chachamim decreed that the fluid of a non-kosher species is usher. They allow it to be consumed only when it's mixed with the fluid of kosher grasshoppers. Ritzadok testified over there that in fact the fluid of non-kosher grasshoppers is mutter in all circumstances, even when it is by itself. Okay, cool. Okay, so far we heard from Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Tzadok, and we have a couple more Mishnayos, 2 more Mishnayos about Rabbi Tzadok. Hey, Rabbi Tzadok, this is Mishnah Gimel. Hey, Rabbi Tzadok al Zochlin Shirabu al Hanotrim. Rabbi Tzadok testified about a mixture of both types of water, in which the flowing water, meaning spring water, is more than the trickling water, meaning rainwater. Shehem Kesherim, that the mixture is fit to be used whenever spring water is required. Since most of the water in the mixture is spring water, the mixture is treated as though all of it is spring water. Ma'isa haya bebiras hapilya. There was an incident in biras hapilya where a large amount of flowing water and a small amount of trickling water, meaning a large amount of spring water and a small amount of rainwater, became mixed together before the Chachamim, and they deemed the mixture fit for use as spring water. Mishnah Daled, continuing with Rabbi Tzadok. Hey, Rabbi Tzadok al Zochlin Shalachan Bale Egos. Ba'ali Egos. Ba'ali. Rabbi Tzadok testified regarding the flowing water of a spring that someone channeled and making it pass over a walnut leaf, which is the soft green outer shell of a walnut. That is fit to be used for purposes that require spring water. So walnut leaf is not considered to be a kli. Ma'isa hayebe ahalia. There was an incident in Ahalia in which spring water was passed over a walnut leaf. I have no idea where Ahalia is, somewhere in Israel. And the matter was brought before the Chachamim, before the judges of the Great Sanhedrin, which is in the Lishkas Hagazis in the Beis Hamikdash, and they deemed the water fit for use as spring water. Let's go on. Now we're going to turn to the paraduma and the ash of the paraduma, actually. So move on to Rabbi Yeshua now. This is Mishnah Hey. Hey, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yakim Ish Hadar. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yakim, the leader of the town of Hadar, that testified al kalal shalchata shenas no agabi eshteretz, regarding an earthenware jug that contained ashes of a chatas that someone placed on a dead sheretz. But you took of the ashes of the paraduma and you place the whole jug on top of the sheretz. The sheretz transmits tumah when it's dead. Shu'utame. So the whole jug of ashes, Rabbi Yakim testified that the ashes were tummy. So even though the sheretz touched the outside of the jug, and the jug itself remained tahor because it was earthenware, it's klicheres, the ashes became tummy because they were in a place of tumah. So it was necessary for these two chachamim to testify to this halacha. So Rabbi Eliezer Matahir, because Rabbi Eliezer rules that the ashes are a tahor since the jug itself is tahor. So they came and they said that the jug is tahor, that it's earthenware, but the ashes inside are tummy. Cool. Now we're still in this Mishnah, but we're turning to a nazir. A nazir, and hey, Rabbi Papayas al Mishnazir Shtei Naziros. Rabbi Papayas testified about someone who took a vow, who swore to observe 2 terms of Naziros without specifying how long each term will last. So we know that a stam Nazir is 30 days. If a person says he's becoming a Nazir, that Nazir term is for 30 days unless he specified longer for 30 days. But in minimum, it's 30 days. That if he shaved for the conclusion of the first term on the 30th day, he should shave for the conclusion of the second term on the 60th day, which is the 31st day of the second term. And that if he shaved on the 15th, again, I just got interrupted by an interruption. Let's try this again. Rabbi Papayas testified about someone who vowed to observe 2 terms in the zeros without specifying how long each term will last. That if he shaved for the conclusion of the first term on the 30th day, he should shave for the conclusion of the second term on the 60th day, which is the 31st day of the second term. And that if he shaved on the 59th day, which is the 30th day of the second term, he has fulfilled his chiyuv. Because the 30th day counts for him twice. In other words, it counts for the 30th day of the first term and the first day of the second term. So therefore, the second term of the zeros started on the 30th day, which is day 1 of the second term, and ends on day 59. So preferably, he should shave the next day, which is day 60. But if he shaved on the 59th day, then he has fulfilled his chiyuv. Mishnah Vav. Hey, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Papayas, Avlad, Shal Shlamim, Sheyikro Shlamim. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Papayas testify that the offspring of a Shlamim should be offered as a Shlamim. And this was needed to support one side in a dispute between Tanaim. So Rabbi Eliezer Omer Shevlad Shlamim Lo Yikra Shlamim. Rabbi Eliezer says that the offspring of a Shlamim should not be brought as a Shlamim because of a din derabanan. Chachamim Omrim Yikrav, but the Chachamim say that it should be brought as a Shlamim. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Papayas testified that they heard from the teachers that the Chachamim that the ruling is correct. Amar Rabbi Papayas, Rabbi Papayas said, Ani meish ha'isa para zivchei shlamim. I testified that we had a cow that was a shlamim offering, v'achalnuha b'Pesach, and we ate it during the Yontif of Pesach, v'achalanu vlad shlamim b'chag, and we ate its offspring as a shlamim on Shavuos. Usually Chag means Sukkot, but over here Chag is referring to Shavuos. Okay, Mishnah Zion. They testified, meaning Yeshua Papayas. They are giving Edus now on 4 more cases. The first one is about Tuma and Tahara. So they testified that the wooden boards of professional bakers upon which the bakers would put loaves of bread before baking them, Shem Timeos, that they can become Tamim. Even though the boards were flat and flat wooden utensils cannot become tamei, according to Torah law, the Chachamim decree that the boards of professional bakers can in fact become tamei because they resemble kalim. It was necessary for the Tanakh to testify to this law. Rabbi Eliezer metaher, because Rabbi Eliezer ruled that these boards are toher; they cannot become tamei. The second testimony is also on Tuma and Tahara. Heidu al Tanor shechatcho chulya shenasan chol ben chulya lechulya. They testified, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Papayas, they testified about an earthenware oven, and someone cut into horizontal pieces, into rings, and then he reassembled it by piling up the pieces one on top of the other and putting sand between each piece, and he covered the outside of the oven with clay so that they would keep it contaminated, because the outer layers of clay connected the pieces of the oven and get a complete vessel. So it was to testify to this halacha, because Eliezer holds that such an oven is tohar, it cannot become tamei, but since there is sand between the pieces, they are not connected, and the oven is not complete. Moving on to leap years. We add an extra month for Adar Sheni in order to make sure that Pesach is in the spring. So, so Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Papayas, they testify that we can extend the year, we can make it into a 13th month, into a leap year, anytime during the month of Adar, which is the last month of the year. So so they had to give this edus. Why? Because the Chachamim used to say that a leap year can be declared only until Purim, which is the 14th of Adar. Right. So the Chachamim were concerned that if you declared a leap year after Purim, then people would come to sin. Because we know 30 days before Yontif, the Chachamim would start teaching, and if you were out of the means that they start learning about Pesach on Purim, or after Purim. So if the Sanhedrin declared a leap year after Purim and then sent out the messengers, then people might not believe them because they put more faith in what they heard at the lectures, and it would be very confusing as to whether Pesach is really in a month after Purim or there's an Eduyos. So, according to Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Papayas, there's no basis for this concern because people know the question of whether to declare leap year depend on complicated astronomical calculations. So when the messengers they arrive after Purim and they tell them that there's a leap year, they will believe the messengers because they will assume that the court had not completed its calculations until that point, and therefore they won't be confused. That's according to them. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Papayas, they testified that we can extend the leap year conditionally, meaning if the Nasi was unavailable, because the Nasi had to sign off on the decision, and if he's not available, then it's not a done deal. So the court may declare the year, the leap year, on the condition that the Nasi eventually agrees. A Ma'isa Rabbi Gamliel, there was a Ma'isa that happened with Rabbi Gamliel, who was the Nasi. Shahalach Lito Rishus Mehegmon B'Surya B'Shalavo, that he went to request permission from the governor in Syria regarding certain communal matters. And he was delayed in coming back. The Hebrew was a Shana al Tanad the Kashiyitz, Rabbi Gamliel. In the meantime, the Sanhedrin, they extended the year on condition that Rabbi Gamliel would later agree. And when he returned, he said, I agree. And Nimsis Hashanah Maberis, and it emerged that the year was extended and there was one more month, the 13th month. Mishnah Ches revolves. This is relating to professional olive boilers, people who boil the pulp of pressed olives in order to extract more oil, and dyers, people who dye materials. They would use large vats for the work. So to prevent the contents of the vat from spilling over when boiling, they would stick clay around the top of the vat, giving the vat more height. Now this Eduyos, which is also going to be found in Kalim when we get to that in probably January time, it concerns the question of whether this clay is really considered part of the vat and can therefore become tummy, or it's a separate entity which cannot become tummy. So, Mishnah Ches, hey, Menachem ben Sagnai al Mosav Hayora shel Shokei Zeisim. Menachem ben Signai testified about the addition to the vat of oil of olive boilers, the clay rim, which is the clay rim that's attached to the top of the vat, Shutame, that it is capable of becoming tamei. Since the rim increases the size of the vat, it allows more olive pulp to be boiled at one time, and thereby assists in the basic function of the vat, which makes it a part of the vat. So like the vat, it can receive tumah. But however, the rim attached to the vat of dyers is tahor. It cannot become tamei. So in this case, the dyers did not add more dye to the vat. The rim's only purpose was to prevent the occasional spillage. Since the rim does not assist in the basic function of the vat, it is viewed as a separate item which is unable to receive tumah. So it was therefore necessary for Menachem ben Signai to give this Eduyos, Shahayu Omrim Chiluch HaDevarim, because the Chacham used to say the opposite, that the rim of the olive boiler's vat cannot become tamei, while the rim of the dyer's vat can. Okay, and finally, Mishnah Test is Hayed. There's also four testimonies coming from Nechunya ben Gugoda. Hayed Rabbi Nechunya ben Gugoda al Hachareshes Seisiya Avia. We had these cases back in Gittin. Rabbi Nechunya ben Gugoda testified concerning a deaf mute girl whose father married her off. She yotza beget, that she can be divorced by being given a get. Although a deaf mute is not considered mentally competent, her acceptance of the get is kosher. Since a woman can be divorced without her consent, and mental competence is not required. And he testified concerning an orphaned minor, the daughter of Yisrael, who after losing her father was married off by her mother or brothers to a Kohen. She can eat truma because she is the wife of a Kohen. The Mesa Bala Yersha, and if she dies, her husband inherits her property. And the third edus, Val Hamarish Hagazol Shabano Bebira, and he testified concerning a stolen being that the thief built into a large building. She as damav, that the thief may return its value instead of the being itself. Although Torah law commands a thief to return the property that he stole, if it still exists, then the Chachamim decree in this case that he does not have to knock down the building to return the beam itself, but rather he may pay its monetary value instead. And the last edus, V'chatas Hagazula Shelo Noda L'Ravim, and he testified. Again, we're talking about every Mechuni ben Gudgoda. So he testified concerning a stolen korban chatas. Means the animal was a regular animal, and it was stolen by someone who then was mekadesh it as a korban chatas, whose stolen status is unknown to the public. Shehi mechaperes that it brings a kapara, and the thief does not need to bring a different animal in its place. Why? That this gezerah was made for the benefit of the mizbeach, that even though the carbon is puzzle, because it was stolen, we're concerned that if the ganav would have to bring another in its place, then the kohanim would realize that they had offered and eaten a puzzle carbon. They would be so upset that they would refrain from bringing other karbanos out of fear that they also stole it. So Chamim therefore parted the thief from replacing the korban for the benefit of the mizbeach, in order to prevent the mizbeach from being neglected by the kohanim and empty of karbanos. Okay, that's all for today. We'll continue tomorrow as we finish off the Masechta with Perek Ches. Have a wonderful day.